talked about a lot of combat-based games in this channel, so now I find myself craving for a different experience. Less about action, and more about planning, thinking, experimentation, and that kind of thing. And that's why I'm super glad that Automachef was released for Steam users on the 24th last week. The game is developed by Hermes Interactive and published by Team 17. Its premise is that under the behest of a robot boss, you design automated kitchens by connecting different kinds of machines together so that you can bring out complete dishes efficiently. These dishes will be based on the recipes that you follow as you play. So you need to choose the right machines, the right number of machines, and then take into account their positioning. There are many different types of machines that you can use for your kitchen in Automachef. You have dispensers that dish out raw ingredients. You have conveyor belts and robot arms that move these ingredients to and fro. Things like grills and fryers that transform your ingredients into something different. Or indeed food processors if you just need to chop them up. You then move them into an assembler so that you can combine them into a single item. And if your food needs packaging, there's a special machine for that too. For liquid ingredients, you have pumps and storage tanks that you can connect to your assemblers to make sure that your favorite dish always has that dash of extra mayo and mustard and ketchup or whatever condiment the recipe demands. It's easy to get overwhelmed with all of these choices, but that's what the campaign is for. The campaign gives you a set of levels, each with objectives to complete. You get a predetermined set of machines to use, and a budget that limits how many machines your kitchen can use. It starts out easy enough, especially since you only need to fulfill a set number of orders to complete the contract. But for those of you who are completionists, or simply looking for a challenge, there are 2 optional objectives that you can complete along the way. Optional objectives are typically power consumption limitations and ingredient quotas. To complete them, you have to keep your automated kitchen as efficient as possible. There are many ways to do this, and they are being taught in the campaign's tutorial levels. I only wish they were taught sooner, because by the time the tutorial for running your machines on Power Saver kicked in, I already figured it out. I used order readers to make sure that machines were off when they were not needed, and ingredients were being dispensed only when they were needed. I also already figured out how to set some machines to power saving mode, so they run with less energy but run slower, and I've also figured out that I can set them to high speed mode to consume more power if it means churning out the dishes as fast as possible. It's possible that the campaign was designed so that you can go back to the previous levels after completing the new tutorials, so that you can complete the optional objectives. If true, then I think there's a better way of doing it, like, maybe teach a concept in each level, while still applying the concepts from the old levels. I don't know, there's probably a better way to do it other than this, but it's fun regardless. I still enjoyed the campaign, and setting aside the tutorial levels, the other levels have a nicely balanced and adequately escalating difficulty curve that give you ample opportunity to learn how to optimize your setup given the machines that you have available. Contracts get harder, the optional objectives get harder still, and you will be presented with trickier situations like not having enough kitchen space, which will force you to really optimize your setup using as few machines and conveyor belts as possible, so you can really look forward to an interesting experience. Test site is just like it sounds. You have large open space that you can use to place any combination, or indeed combinations of machines, no matter how complex or simple they may be. No objectives, no power caps, no orders, and unlimited budget. I think this is the best way to try out new machines encountered in the campaign mode, so it's definitely worth trying this mode out every now and then. Contracts mode is probably best played after you beat the campaign mode, because when I was recording for this video, I tried out contracts mode after a few campaign missions. Needless to say, I was kind of overwhelmed when the very first set of contracts required a very complex set of recipes, like the triplane meal, so I pretty much started with the simple contracts first. Speaking of starting, in contracts mode, you start with a $50,000 budget. That budget is used to acquire new machines before accepting a contract, and during the game when you start constructing your automated kitchen. So had I gone for the contract with a triplane meal, I would have needed to buy a set of very expensive machines. That would have left me with not enough resources to even construct the necessary kitchen for that contract. Perhaps there is a way to complete this with simpler machines, but it would be much easier to figure that out if you've already encountered the triplane meal within the campaign. Perhaps the hardest part of the game is properly controlling the machines. You will need to use computers once your simple order hearers just won't cut it. You can connect devices to them. In the case of the AC16 computer, you can hear up to 4 types of orders with it. Each order type and device will be assigned variables that you can call upon when you use the code editor. Yes, the code editor. And if you have any programming language experience on you, then you pretty much know exactly what to expect. You can go through the guide that's conveniently readable on the device itself to figure out what the variables and functions are, but most of us will probably use the visual editor. You pick commands from a drop-down menu, assign variables and values to them, arrange them until you believe you've got everything down pat, and then you can switch back to the code view to see what your commands look like as lines of text. This is the best way to control machines, especially for very elaborate kitchen designs, because having multiple order hearers will eventually become very inefficient. The game has plenty of tools in place to incentivize you to keep trying without fear of failure. You can simulate an order from each recipe and check your setup to see if it can properly create and submit the product. You can then make changes based on what you see from the simulation. If you like a setup, you can save it as a blueprint for future use. You can also create a save for each specific contract or level. If you make changes to your setup that turn out to make things worse, you can reload that save and revert back to your previous setup. If you do decide to hit start and something bad happens that you didn't foresee in simulations, you can simply hit the stop button and go back to the point before the service began. In contracts mode, once you do complete the contract but feel like you can still do better, you can retry instead of submitting your setup's design to fulfill the contract. It really feels like the developers knew that some of us would be perfectionists, so they designed the game so that you can keep trying again until you get it right. It speaks to how much care they put into the game, but I think some of that care could have been directed at the UI. You'd constantly have to scroll up and down to find the machine you want to use. When you do select a machine, the tooltip appears below the selection, so you have to scroll down even more. When accessing menus from each machine, especially the order hearing devices, the window that appears takes up the whole bloody screen. The network of wires and pipes that appear once you do connect machines can get really tricky to navigate, especially when your setup has become very complex. And I think they could have done with more color coding or used some other indicator. Heck, they have indicator lenses to tell you which machines are on or off, which machines have high power consumption. I think something similar could have been used to indicate which machines are connected to each other. And I definitely think that instead of having a window that takes up the whole bloody screen, you can use small icons and make the tooltips appear as your mouse hovers over it, kinda like in Sims games, but maybe that's just me. Despite the UI being a bit messy, I thoroughly fell in love with the game. I'm glad that they used small bits of funny dialogue from the boss robot, instead of ham-fisting an overarching story with relationships and other distracting guff. The game is all about building an automated kitchen, and it makes zero pretense of being anything else but that. I definitely recommend this game to anyone who needs a change of pace from the usual hacking and slashing and shooting and fighting, or for anyone that just likes management type games in general. If you already have the game, I hope you're having as much fun as I am. Okay, so before I end this episode, I just want to let you guys know that yes, I did get Wolfenstein Youngblood that came out a couple of days ago. I will be featuring that game in the next episode. I could have put it in this video instead, but I wanted more time with the game to really dig into its features and how they work, especially in co-op. If you guys like this video and look forward to the next one, please subscribe to my channel and make sure to click the bell icon so that you get notified whenever the new videos come out. This is Speakerhead, your head speaker. Thank you for watching.